Hey, good evening, everyone. This is Lacy Johnson with the Lacy Johnson Podcast, coming to you every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Central Time. So thanks for joining us. This evening, we're going to touch on a few topics in current events. And we're also excited to have for tonight's guest, Mr. Dave Rubin. So we're very excited to have a dialogue and exchange of idea with Dave. But let's get going here. The first news item, the DA in San Francisco was recalled on Monday night, I think the election was, and he lost 61% favor recalling him, so he'll no longer be DA. Now, let's back up a second here and see, can we break this down a little bit? And I'm going to add in some just little personal experiences along the way, as I'm apt to do. 1985, I'm living in Washington, D.C., working for a major defense contractor, super secret defense program. And I needed a break for the weekend, so I decided to drive up to New York City and visit a college mate, and he was starring in a soap opera at the time, Another World, to visit him. And I've always loved New York. That was the first time I got there, so I loved this right away. But I noticed that the Times Square was still seedy. There was slow, petty crimes going on everywhere. In fact, I just remember him telling me that every time he gets comfortable in New York City at the time, keep in mind this was like 1987 or so, I think it was. I don't know what I said, 85 previously, but 1987. And he was saying, just as I'm getting comfortable with this city, I'll bump into someone and they'll turn around and just angrily tell me, you do that again, I'll slash your effing throat. And that was the way New York was back in those days. Okay, so fast forward, about 4 or 5 years later, 1981, my wife and I purchased a timeshare in New York at the Manhattan Club. So we're going there every year. And about 1984, 94, somewhere in there, I'm beginning to notice that the city is cleaned up. I'm feeling safe everywhere I walked, and we walked all over New York City, every major borough, Manhattan, Queens, Harlem, all hours of the day. And there was just a sense of safety and security. Now, what changed? And even though there are different theories out there, many people think, and I tend to agree, that some of the law enforcement policy put in place by Mayor Rudy Giuliani had a lot to do with it. And the approach that he took is what's called the broken windows approach, where they start arresting and prosecuting people for small crimes, jaywalking, littering, public intoxication, all those smaller crimes they start focusing on. And what eventually happened was a drastic reduction in large crimes. Now, I don't know about you, but most of the time when I read about someone committing a large or heinous crime, when you start reading that, looking at their background, you see where it started out with small things. And once again, it was those small things that we didn't catch at an early stage, because if we intervened at an earlier stage, some of these bigger things, the murders, the carjacking, the home invasions, maybe they would not have occurred. Now, let me say this, and I'm constantly reminded of a quote from Elon Musk when he went out and said he's going to stop voting Democrats and he's going to start voting Republican. One thing he mentioned, one of the reasons he voted Democrat, he said, because of their kindness. And so where I'm going with this is that you can be kind to people and hold them accountable at the same time. In fact, that's probably the ultimate kindness. You don't just be kind and let them off the hook. And so it may appear to be kind to let people off for small crimes, but it's really not. you're not holding them accountable. You're not making them responsible. And as part of the crackdown on crime, approach on law enforcement, we have to hold people accountable for even the smallest crime. And I say that includes me. It includes my son and my wife, who I love very dearly, but we all need to be held accountable. Once accountability goes out of the window, then it's just what we have now, a sense of lawlessness. And I said before that the principle that guides my positions on most things in life are principles I found in the Bible, specifically the teachings of Jesus. And, whether you believe it from a religious standpoint or not, or a philosophical standpoint, it's just a good set of principles to live your life by, I think. And then the second set of principles that I live by are those found in the Constitution. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit, Second Amendment and things like that. So the Constitution and all call for some type of discipline and sacrifice. Thirdly is the teachers of my mom and dad and the elders that raised me. And then fourthly, I don't know, maybe 1% or less, just my life lessons and things I've learned along the way and wisdom I've gained. But most of the stuff I needed for, as far as principle in life, came from there. And this is where I'm going. I am just very thankful that those who raised me, my teachers, everyone held me accountable. And I had some tough lessons in accountability growing up with my mom, my parents, my grandparents, my school teachers. As a matter of fact, I can just remember a couple of school teachers, ones that I haven't gotten over today. In the 6th grade, we had these spelling lessons we do every week. And I remember one week I spelled every word correctly. However, I put it down in the wrong column. I put it down in the column for the next week rather than the current week. And my 6th grade teacher, Miss Walker, not only did she give me 0, but she had me hold out my hand, and back in those days, they had corporal punishment. And she got out a little 12-inch ruler and gave me 16 licks in my hands for writing it in the wrong column. And just one more story. I remember 8th grade science teacher, Mr. Hickenbottom. Once again, got every question right. But when I got my test back, I only had 80 on it, and he took off minus 20. Because I finished the test and I had time left, and I drew a little cartoon picture of Fred Flintstone. And so when I got my test back, he had 100 minus 20 for doodling, and I got 80. So that's the type of responsibility I was taught. And we were not even allowed not to be irresponsible by mistake. If we did, they try to make sure that mistake won't happen again. So this is where I'm going with this. There's a lot of people out there, out of kindness or pity or whatever, they look at, especially young black youth, and they feel sorry for them. They can't afford bail, all that type of stuff. And they put a lot of things in place that's not good for these young men. It's not good for the community. It's not good for our state. It's not good for our country. When you start letting people go because of their circumstances in life, because of who they are and what group they're in, you're asking for trouble. And I say that from experience in dealing with these, especially young black males. When they come to me with a complaint about whatever, and then some of them do have complaints about law enforcement, the first thing I get them to do is look at their role and responsibility in the situation and focus on their roles and responsibility in the situation. I had one come to me complaining about the police stopped him for an expired license plate. Well, my first question was, did you have an expired license plate? Yes. Well, to me, that's the end of the story. Don't drive around with expired license tag. Oh, and by the way, make sure you check your brake lights and things all the time too, because you can get stopped for that. So what I'm doing, I'm putting the responsibility on them to stay out of that situation. I was talking to a young man yesterday complaining about a situation he had with law enforcement. And once again, as a conservative who believe in limited government, who's not a big fan of government, to be honest with you, he comes to me and complaining. I'm like, look, I don't care who you are, for whatever reason. There are very few people you're going to find who has some experience in dealing with government and who's going to come out of there feeling positive about it. What you need to do is make sure you don't put yourself in that situation where you have to even deal with that. And I explained to him in terms of his taxes, no matter how you get in that situation, the IRS, you need to make sure you've done everything you can to stay out of it. And if you get into that situation, don't be complaining. The only person, I put this back on them, like my parents put it back on me, the only person you can hold accountable and responsible and accountable is you. And so that's my idea. And so once again, this Chessie Bodine, who was recalled out in San Francisco. And by the way, if what they've done to that city and every city that these woke leaders have been in charge of, what's the word I want to look for there? It just, I'll just call it sad. And let's just keep it simple, how they run these cities down and where Minneapolis is going down. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But whether you look at Seattle, Portland, Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Diego, all the left coast cities, the same thing is going on. And the interesting thing about it is that most of the voters out there do not connect themselves to this trend. Well, let me rephrase that. Most of the Democrat voters in these areas do not connect their votes to these trends. And generally what happens and what's going to happen here in Minneapolis, they aren't going to realize what's going on until it's too late, until we're having carjackings at grocery stores in in rich suburbs, until we have homeless encampments in rich neighborhoods, and they see the drug dealers, they see the public nudity, they see the assaults going on there. It's only then that they start connecting their votes to the trends of violence and crime that's going on in this country. I say that, and it's amazing as a citizen of Minneapolis. As far as I'm concerned, we've had a heck of a uptick in violent crimes. Once again, home invasion, carjackings, murders, you name it. A total sense of lawlessness where people are running stop signs and red lights right in front of the police. We've had the number of police count dropped from high, almost 1,000 down to in the 200s, even though we need about 1,200 to 1,500. As far as I'm concerned, all of this started when our mayor allowed people, as a result of the George Floyd killings, I don't know whether he felt sorry for him or he identified, he figured it was an act of kindness or whatever, but he actually let them destroy a police station. Can you imagine what kind of message that they send to the lawless people, to the people who think, and I've heard this, that looting is a form of reparations? I mean, we have young people out there actually thinking like that. And, you know, to be honest with you, how can I help not think that way? Because that's what's taught in schools, in our public schools. That's what they see on TV. That's what's in the media and things like that. That this sense of we want to show kindness. We want to feel sorry for people who have not had the best circumstances in life. But once again, and this is what I tell people, your circumstances in life should not dictate the type of person you are. It should not dictate your outlook on life, your goals in life. It should not, of course, not affect your willingness to work hard, make good choices, and things like that. And so that's what's happened in Minneapolis. But once again, back on the subject of voters not connecting their votes to the trends of lawlessness in all these different areas and across the country, they actually re-elected Mayor Fry. And that's part of the sadness. Besides, and I should say, on most of these issues, they are kind of personal for me. I know some of the young 3-year-old girl who was killed as a result of this lawlessness in Minneapolis. Her dad went to school with my son. I know one of the grandfathers of another 3-year-old that was shot and killed. I had a member working for me that was shot and killed out in these streets unnecessarily. My neighbor across the alley, my neighbors, they lost their only son as a result of this lawlessness. So this is not some type of philosophical debate, a political debate for me. This is real life stuff. And once again, when we see these woke, I call them woke joke prosecutors, DAs like Chester Bodine out in San Francisco, and the havoc that they've wreaked in San Francisco, and like I say, all the other coast cities out there. And then we can throw in East Coast City, we can throw in Minneapolis, Chicago, D.C., anywhere that they're in control. And believe it or not, a lot of them are backed by foreign money. George Soros, Open Society Foundation are providing loans. I think we found out that in the Justice Smollett case in Chicago, that George Soros had actually donated $400,000 to Kim Fox, who actually was going to let him out after he told this story that most of us knew was a lie from the beginning. And so this is what's going on. There's some soul things going on in all these cities, especially in law enforcement, where they're bailing out criminals. They're not holding them accountable for crimes. They're feeling sorry for criminals. I'm sorry. I'm pretty much upfront on this. If you are a healthy adult, physically and mentally, I'm not doing you a favor by feeling sorry for you and pitying you. In fact, in a weird kind of way, I have a sense of, I'm looking down at you because of that. And I don't want to look down on anyone, and I don't. But once again, we got a lot of people out there, because you're poor, because you're black, because we're going to forgive this and forgive that. Well, I'm not probably a good time to end this because I've been going on for a while. Once again, I'm just going to go back to the way I was raised. And it's just a blessing that no one felt sorry for me. And I didn't want anyone to feel sorry for me. I tell people, I was not raised to think like a victim, and I'm glad I wasn't. I was not raised to blame what happened to me in the past on my as a determinant of my future. I was not raised to blame the world and look at the way the society is and blame that and use that as an excuse for not achieving in life. And I want everyone to know I am never, ever in favor of lowering the standards, having a lower set of standards for one person versus another one. And once again, as long as we are healthy, mentally and physically, I don't want us dividing people and feeling sorry for people. And that's the way I feel about what they're doing in law enforcement. And that's why I'm happy to see last night this Chester Bodine out in San Francisco, this DA was recalled. I think the final numbers were 61% to 39%. And once again, the little things, people. And I've said it before. We have right now, especially among our young people, our young college educated, and I'm tempted to say college indoctrinated people, we have this thing where we want to go out and change the world, and we can't even change the things we need to change in our own lives. but we think we can change the world. We can't get up and make our bed up every morning. We can't show up on time. We can't hold a job and take care of ourselves and any children or anyone else we have, and even take care of our parents. Yet, we want to go out and change the world. Mr. Bodine, I understand his father was a founder of the group Weather Underground. His mom was a member. And so how we get from him with that background, and we know California has always been known to be a liberal leftist trending towards a Marxism state. But to have someone like that end up as DA and excusing all kinds of crime and wreaking havoc on that wonderful city. In fact, I tell everyone, the 3 cities I think every American should visit at least once, and I'm going to revise it. I'm going to add some more cities to it, but San Francisco is one of those cities. New York City, San Francisco, and New Orleans, those are the 3 cities I think every American should, that used to be on my list because of just the beauty of the city and looking out over the bay and just the history of it. But now that Mr. Bodine and the likes of him, the mayor, they all woke out there with how they've destroyed this beautiful city, San Francisco. I think it was a great job by the voters of that city to vote him out of office. And I think that the mayor of Los Angeles, once again, I think there's a recall, not the mayor, the DA of Los Angeles, there's a recall effort. I hear it's underway for him for the same type of policies. Eventually, I hope if it gets this bad in Minnesota, I don't know whether we can recall our attorney general and the local DAs here, but we may. I hope we don't get to that point here in the Twin Cities, but I see us trending towards that. And I'll just end it to the voters out there. There is a bad trend out there. Woke people feeling sorry for people, underestimating people, not giving them enough credit for the human capital that's in these communities, not holding people responsible and accountable. And it all starts there as far as I'm concerned. Individual responsibility, individual accountability. We got a whole lot of government officials that's not doing that, whether it's out of kindness or pity or whatever. I think it's wrong. And once again, it's harming the individuals. It's harming those communities. It's eventually going to harm the cities, the states, and this country. So let's get rid of all these woke people. I hope, let me know what you think. And I'll talk to you next week.